Around the world, people live different lives, doing different things that are unique and make us who we are, writing our own stories and learning new things along the way. We all learn different things. We all face different challenges and obstacles, but manage to get through them one way or another. We as humans go through our own journeys, and we learn as we build our own resilience. No matter how much we get beat down, what matters is how we get back up. And everyone loves a good story. Welcome to the Neil Coutts Show.
Welcome everybody to today's episode of the Neil Coutts Show. Today's guest is Tansel Ali. Tansel Ali is a 4 times Australian memory champion. As well as that, he is also an educator / trainer where he helps people to basically improve their memory. But without further ado, thank you very much for coming onto the show there, Tansel.
Thanks, Neil, for having me.
So, buddy, how did you get into the whole memory games, memory championships and stuff like that?
Yeah, look, I actually didn't believe that people could improve their memory. So I was a big skeptic. And then one day a friend came up to me and said, Tansel, look, I can remember 40 random objects back to front, any order. And I thought, no, you can't. So I had to test him out, right? Yeah. And when I tested him out, I didn't see him writing or cheating or anything. And, I gave him a whole bunch of words and he memorized everything perfectly. And I thought, how the hell did you do that? And he goes, it's just memory technique. I'm like, what's that? And he goes, I got it from a book. I'm like, what's the book? And he couldn't remember. I'm like, oh, fair enough. So anyway, I went and searched memory techniques and learnt the techniques. And I thought, gee, why don't they teach this at school? And I started remembering everything from there. And the rest is history, I guess.
Wow. So you basically, how can I say, yeah. So you're pretty much gobsmacked. To see someone be able to just recite something straight out of the blue, out of nowhere, yeah? And that, it was just something that you thought, all right, I'll give that a go, yeah?
Yeah, look, I couldn't believe it because I thought it was some sort of a trick. Like, how cards have tricks and all that sort of stuff. So I thought it was something like that. But little did I know there was, memory techniques out there. And I thought, what is this, memory techniques business? And, as you start researching more and more, you realize that there's strategies out there that weren't even taught at school. And once you do get into them, they really do change your life. And that's what happened to me. I started learning these things. So I'm like, wow, this is not just game-changing for me, but everyone else out there that is trying to learn something or trying to improve themselves. So that's what got me really excited about it.
Okay, so basically, it's just techniques really, because it's not about just having a good memory. Like, everyone thinks memory is all about having good memory, being sharp, eating healthy and stuff like that. But to get a really good memory and recite a lot of information, there's actually techniques that go along with it.
Yeah, that's right. Just because I've, won memory competitions and memorized phone books and all that sort of stuff, people think that I'm naturally gifted with memory. But like any other person that's learned these techniques, I've just spent a bit of time, learnt them, and then once I've learnt the skills, that's it. I can now do what I need to be able to do. You don't have to memorize a whole bunch of books and stuff to be able to, live how you want. It might be just remembering, people's names or remembering a speech or reading a book and remembering more. Just things that, just everyday people can find challenging. Now you can actually go ahead, do these things and not worry about forgetting or learning problems or anything like that. So it really is, like I said, life-changing.
So what are some of these techniques that you learn, or do you still practice them, I guess? But what are some of these techniques?
Yeah, look, a lot of the techniques are based upon visualization and association, storytelling. Once you start getting into the realm of the imagination, that's when you've got a real unlimited potential of making things more memorable. So, for example, if you were to meet someone like, let's say I meet another Neil, right? Instead of trying to repeat that name in my head over and over again, that doesn't actually do anything, that repetition. It's not really a strong strategy. It is a strategy, but it's very weak.
Yeah.
What if I was to say, you can imagine that other person kneeling before me, right? Neil is kneeling before me, right? Now it's a stupid story,
Yeah.
but it's one that you can remember. And then next time you see that person, you go, why is that person kneeling before me? Ah, their name's Neil.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So now you're creating that story, and that story is much easier to remember as opposed to a word, because a word is abstract, has no meaning until you give that meaning, which is all visual.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like basically creative storytelling is what you do in the ability to be able to recite a multiple list of words. Say, for example, like a shopping list. You've got a shopping list of 10 items that you would need to go buy because your wife's like, hey, Tansel, I need some eggs, chocolate, bread, tomatoes, oranges, some chewing gum, milk, frozen peas, and let's say mixed bag of vegetables. How would you go about remembering something like that?
Yeah, look, there's a number of methods. There's not just one strategy. So what you can do, obviously a lot of people write down a list, so you can do that, cheating method. But if you want to get it down in your head, you can make a story one by one. So you can start with the milk, you drop the milk in the aisle and suddenly the milk turned into chocolate. You started, swimming through the chocolate and suddenly someone throws a tomato at your head. And, you just build the story one by one with the items you're going to buy. So you can do something like that. Now, obviously, if you've got more than, say, 20 items, that's going to be one really long story. So there's other techniques like the method of loci, which is also called the memory palace, where, the ancient Greeks have created a system where you go along a familiar path and you attach items to be remembered. So almost like folders on a computer where you just chuck the files in, and instead of trying to remember where all the files are, you just remember where the folder is. And you just go to that folder in your brain. So there's similar techniques out there as well. It really depends on the application that you're using it for.
So is that like, when you say that, it's like the chunking method? You're taking a group of words and putting it in one section, and then basically each section's attached to a story that you basically probably remember already. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's various strategies like that. That's just one method as well. Obviously, chunking, you're grouping a whole bunch of information together and creating sense. Something like speed reading works the same way as well. Instead of trying to read word by word by word, all you're really doing is you're looking at a group of words in context and you're seeing an image. So it's like when you're watching a TV show or a movie or something like that, you're not trying to remember every single word, are you? You're just kicking back and watching, right? But when you're reading something, why do we always go back and reread, right? The difference is that we're looking at words as opposed to images. Now, if you're looking at words, that's not encoded in our brain yet. So in order to encode it, we have to go back and reread so we can get those images, right? Whereas something visual, there's already an image there. It's encoded information. So in order to read better or speed read, all we have to do is read visually. And there's various strategies around that. So that's where the speed reading comes in. If you're reading visually, you're naturally reading faster. So there's a lot of strategies that, come into play there.
So, yeah, because like I noticed I've been trying to learn to speed read over the years. And so my partner thinks I actually read pretty fast. I don't know if I do or not. I would think that some people could just read really fast, like a page. Is it possible, like maybe a normal sized book, like, a novel, read about a page a minute or something, or less than that?
Oh, yeah, look, a minute's quite normal, actually. But, so you're looking at something like, 15 seconds to 30 seconds,
wow.
You'd be able to read. But again, instead of trying to get every single word, you're looking at the context. Yeah. So it's like you're watching a movie, right? That's once you get that right, you're not only going to improve your reading, but you're going to improve your comprehension because you're seeing what you're reading as opposed to just looking at words. Do you know what I mean? So that's where the real power of speed reading comes in, to improve the comprehension, not just the reading speed.
Yeah, because I always think it's like you read the line, but in your head you're graphically imaging the line, you look at the line and you're
graphically imagining the line, so you grasp as you read through each line and you get to the complete paragraph. You've sort of drawn up the picture in your head or got the story in your head, and then you just move on to the next section. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. The challenge there is with technical information, right? And what technical information is, it's information where you can't create an image straight away,
All
right?
right.
So what happens there? That's when you can obviously slow down a bit and try and get the visuals, or you could create a placeholder image. Let's say you come across a word or a sentence you've got no idea about, you can create whatever you want in your head, and then later on sort of get back to it as well. So it really depends on what strategy you have for acquiring that information. Like if you want to acquire it, if you want to remember it, if you want to study it, there's various ways of attacking a book. It's not just one way of reading. It all comes down to the intention of what you're trying to do in the first instance.
Yeah. Okay. So were these things easy to learn? Was it a bit of a journey in the path of learning these techniques? Is it something like someone can pick up overnight, or does it take weeks or months? Hopefully not years, I guess.
Yeah, look, I mean, I pretty much picked it up straight away, and I was not a very good reader. I hardly read any books, and the memory stuff was that's even easier.
Yeah.
The speed reading takes a bit of time. Like it took me a few weeks, but the memory stuff, once you learn the techniques, I mean, it. It's like being able to flick a switch. Once you flick that switch, the light comes on. But if you never know how to flick that switch, you're always going to be in darkness. So that's how I felt I was.
So how long did it take you to get to that place where you were satisfied with what you were learning and that you were able to apply it?
Yeah, look, it's, I was very fortunate because I got out of hospital and I was recovering at home and I had a fair bit of time. So I read a lot of books and did a lot of practice and trained for a memory competition. So, I probably did more work than anyone else of learning these skills, but I also had a fair bit of interest. I was curious, and if you're curious about something and you go full at it, you can get some really good results.
Yeah.
So that's why I was very fortunate that I did have the time and, learn all these things. And not just me, but my friends and people that were involved. I mean, everyone did really well. So it wasn't just me. And then once I got into it and started teaching people, they started seeing results straight away. And, it's been 20 years and I'm still sort of teaching people. So it's amazing that how anyone can really pick these skills up and change their life.
All right. So with these games you were talking of, these competitions, what sort of games did you do there? Like, was it reciting decks of cards, reciting dictionaries? What do they get you to do?
Yeah, there's usually 10 events, and the events are things like, memorize a deck of cards in the fastest time possible. So they're randomly shuffled, and you have to memorize them in that shuffled order. There's also, names and faces. There's random dates, but they're all sort of made up dates because if they were sort of facts, people would remember the facts as well. Random digits and numbers, in rows of 40 as well.
Wow.
And if we make one mistake, we don't get 39 out of 40. We get 20 out of 40. And if we make two mistakes, we get 0. So we were judged on, effectiveness and not just whoever can memorize the most. So that was what made the competitions really tough. And, from first place to last, you might have only one, small mistake the difference, but there'll be a massive difference in points because the other person didn't make any mistakes, as opposed to the person who came last can make a couple of mistakes and it's all over for them. So it's just based on whoever can memorize the most and the most effective as well.
So what was it like? You won this Australian championship, 4 times? So what was that like? Was it, I imagine it's an amazing feat to be named best in Australia, but to do it 4 times, trying to achieve that, right? Was it easy? Like, what sort of competitors were you around?
It was really difficult because, that first year that I entered, I thought I had a really good chance. And I ended up coming, second in Australia. And my friend came third, and we were very close to each other too. So it could have been the other way around. And the guy who won, I mean, he was awesome. He broke like a world record as well. So I'm like, wow, that was pretty cool. But then I thought, you know what, we're very close. So next year we'll do the same. Came second and third again in Australia. And I thought, oh, bugger, we're just not there yet. So I actually tried for 6 years straight
Wow.
to come first in Australia. And for 6 years, I just couldn't make it. I was memorizing more than everyone, but because I was making a mistake here and there, I wasn't getting that win overall. So, after 6 years, that's when I got my first essential, that inaugural win, and I was wrapped because I tried for such a long time.
Yeah.
That was 2008, and then from then on, I gained a bit more confidence and started looking at different training systems, and eventually won. 3 more times I entered, I won those 3 as well, and then I sort of judged a couple of other times and so on. So, it was a really long track, but I think the persistence generally paid off.
Yeah, so you really went down the rabbit hole once you won that first one, yeah, and I guess was it like a career for you? Well, like what motivated you to keep going? Because especially the first 6 times, like were you working another job while you're doing it, or were you doing memory stuff like full time?
Yeah, look, it's not something that I was training every single day for hours and hours and hours. It was pretty much like, there's 3 months left to the competition. Well, let's start training. That was it. And it wasn't, several hours a day either. Like maybe some days might be 4 hours, but that was it. Just me and my mate just having a bit of a laugh, getting together and just doing a few events. But, wouldn't spend hours and hours and hours. So that was really it. I mean, I was working as well and doing all sorts of jobs, and I thought, this is just a fun thing to do on the side. And little did I know that I'd be eventually working in the field and, being an expert and all that sort of stuff. So, it's really fascinating where it sort of took me.
So really the key to your growth was that you actually had other friends that were into it as well. So you guys, because most, mates, they catch up regularly. Were you married at that time when you did do competing in these games?
No, I wasn't. No, I was sort of, yeah.
So you were hanging out with your mates like every day, and you'd be like playing games with each other, yeah? Like, testing out new techniques that you'd learnt or read somewhere and applying them to your methods of memory and stuff like that. And that, would you say that's what helped you grow into the guy that you are when you became the champion?
Yeah, sort of yes and no. I mean, I'd probably meet with my mate maybe a couple of times a week, maybe 3 times initially, but the rest of the time was just at home, trying to beat my own records, and and if I did, I'd SMS my friend and say, look, I did 4 minutes in playing cards, and then he'd message me back saying, I did 3.5 minutes, and we're trying to beat each other's times. And he'd always have my measure, always, in every single thing. I'm like, oh, bugger, he's always beating me. He was a gun.
So the key, what kept you guys motivated was trying to challenge each other. Even if you weren't hanging out, you guys were really serious about this sort of stuff, yeah?
Yeah, it's funny because it didn't feel like I was serious. It was more just, here's something brand new. It's quite fun. I'm using my imagination, bit of creativity. I mean, I've always liked that side as well. And, I'm doing things like memorizing playing cards, whereas before I'd always complain about my memory. So it was something quite new for me, something that I never thought I'd be able to do. And when you get into it and start doing really well, you just want more of it. And the competitions weren't that massive around the world, and it was quite big in London, and you start knowing all the names and all the gurus, and you start reading their books and stuff and then competing against them. So, it got really exciting initially when I got into it.
So did you get, did you get fanboyish much at all when you got to meet these heavyweights? What was it like?
I met Dominic O'Brien, who was like the 8-time world memory champion. And this guy was, in his 40s, 50s or something like that. And he's just absolutely dominated the world stage. When I met him overseas, I was like, just wowed. I'm like, oh my God, it's Dominic O'Brien, I've read all his books and stuff, and, and here I am chatting to him, and, in a world competition, we were competing against each other. I beat him in 2 of the events, and my mind was blown. I'm like, "What? I just beat Dominic O'Brien!" So for me, it was like the greatest achievement. I'm like, "Woohoo!" I'm right.
So what was it like being on the world stage? What was the experience like? Did they have many people that would, come to watch it, I guess, like did they have, was it a big audience or what is the experience like on the big stage playing,
Yeah, it's
competing internationally?
yeah, it was really interesting because when I went to the world competition, this was 2003. It was held in Malaysia, so the first time out of London, the
Yeah.
competition was held. And then when I went to Malaysia, usually they'd have about 20 people around the world going to London competition, but there was about 70 people from all around the world. And I thought, oh no, I'm definitely going to come last here because all these people are absolute guns, and I'm thinking, oh, gee, I'm not going to do really well. But you know what? I'll go in and have some fun
Yeah.
because, why not? So my friend and I went to this competition, huge hall, there's tables and chairs everywhere. So we're sitting down. It's almost like an exam situation,
Yeah.
and you get pieces of paper that you have to memorize. So we sat down amongst 70 odd people, and I was quite shocked at how I went because some of the events I actually ended up breaking Australian records. So I got like 6 records out of the 10 events, and some of the events I came like 5th in the world out of 70, 80 people as well. So it was quite a surreal environment because you look at everyone else and go, oh, these guys are going to kill me. But at the end of the day, it's the real competition is you. So if you can control your mind and get yourself set, then really it's just about you executing the correct way. So, yeah.
So like the emotions can affect your judgment or can affect your ability to perform?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I work with a ton of athletes now, and I've been doing so for 20 years. And, everything that I've learned through memory competitions and, having high mental performance, there's a lot of self-talk going on. There's a lot of, accuracy in terms of your mindset. Excuse me. So there's so many things going on in your head. And once you start mastering that, then you can really move forward and achieve your goals. And that's what I'd worked on and did really well.
Okay. So do you teach much of this stuff as well, like the whole self-talk or what you teach? Because you were saying before now you're teaching people. Is it just the memory techniques?
Oh, look, once you learn the memory techniques and because of the competition side, you realize that there's a whole world out there of personal development.
Yeah.
Like, as I started working with people, the last 20 years, it became initially about memory. But then you realize, hang on, there's performance element in there. There's, time management element. There's, getting rid of procrastination. There's all this mental performance stuff that came out of training your mind. So for 20 years, I didn't just help people improve their memory. I was helping them, perform at their work, at their, in their teams, whatever it was to get to achieve their goals. So, is huge potential for people to learn these skills to get to where they really want to go.
So do they go hand in hand, like high pressure situations? Because that's what it basically is, high pressure situations and memory. Like, are they something that go hand in hand, or are they just two separate categories that just manage to work well together when required?
Yeah, I mean, you look at high pressure situations, what do they involve? There's decision making in there. You've got some sort of narrative stories playing in your head. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm coughing there.
That's all right.
So there's so many things going on, right, in your head. And if you know how to manage all of that, if you know how to sustain performance, if you know how to cut through the noise, if you know how to manage what you really need to execute, then that really plays a massive part. So I learned all that just through the memory training and coaching people and all that sort of stuff. And I was able to achieve, the feat of, breaking memory records and representing Australia and winning those, competitions as well. So, it's really fascinating what you can take out of training your memory.
So what made you getting into training others? Like, what motivated you to do that sort of work?
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw the improvements in myself and I thought, if I could do this for myself, imagine what it could do for others, right? And when you start working with others and you see a bit of success, it feels the best. And you go, wow, it's amazing what these people were able to do. I wanted more of that. So you start sort of working further and, helping people out. And when you see other people succeeding, you go, yep, I want to see more of that. So yeah, and for 20 odd years, that's what I've been doing now, because I love seeing the success it brings people and how it changes their lives and so on.
So it makes you feel really warm, yeah, like helping other people and watching them improve or grow like they're your own babies, yeah?
Yeah, it's rewarding. I mean, a lot of my students have become, successful memory athletes and trainers and speakers, and contributed to books, and it's been quite amazing to see their growth. So, just seeing people succeed just from a skill that it's not even taught at school. I mean, I just find it quite fascinating. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
So do you still get involved in the memory games arena, or is that just something that's now behind you? Like, because you said you were judging at one moment and stuff like that. Do you still get involved in that sort of stuff?
I mostly coach other athletes now. So athletes that are, much, much better than me. And these guys are, competing in the world stage or in the US stage, or, they really want to maximize their potential and their growth. So I essentially train them in, that mindset stuff. I also, check out the KPIs and give them little exercises and things like that to keep their mind in check and, be the best. So, yeah, I still get involved in the memory sports, but from a coaching perspective instead of me sort of competing.
Wow. So you're still in the arena sort of, but you're just not there, but you're a coach basically now, just like the Australian sports teams have their own coaches. You're one of those, but for memory athletes, yeah?
Yeah, and not just memory athletes too. So, people playing football or basketball or any other sport, they want that little, 1 or 2% or 10% mental performance. It's like, okay, let's work on some memory side, because I can guarantee you that the gains from that mental training will help you on field, right? It makes you more creative. It gets you to think outside the box. And the more you train that muscle, the better you get at your craft as well. And this has been proven in so many different fields, not just me coaching as well.
Okay, so what are some of these things that you do with actual sports athletes?
It's a lot of the exercises, right? In physical training, people sort of measure, the shuttle runs and, you do your swimming and weights and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
We know what we do physically, but mentally, people don't know how to train.
Yeah.
So that's where I come in as the mental athlete trainer. I say, okay, here's a little exercise to build your concentration. Here's a little exercise to build your mental stamina. Here's an exercise to, test certain abilities for your mental side, right? So that's what I do. And there's real power in that, because you're not just training physical now, you're training mental. And in a sport or various sports, people are generally very similar physically, but mentally they could be way off. And if you can get that mental side right, then that's when the real champions start to show.
Oh, so you're working on their focus and stuff like that, so they're more aware when they're present on the field. Is that right?
Look, everything. It's not just being present. It's about also being aware of everything else going on. It's about what's that noise? How do I cut through the noise? How do I train at my absolute best mentally? How do I drown out someone else mentally? So there's so many cool things that you can do with your brain. Now, once you know how to train it and work it, you can use it to your advantage.
Okay. So do you get employed by any corporations and stuff like that to work with their employees and stuff like that, so they can help them perform in the workplace?
Yeah, I do a lot of in-house sort of training. I speak at a lot of events and conferences about all this stuff as well. So yeah, and I've been doing it for like 20 years now, and it's great seeing the results.
So you're pretty much a well-known person within the community of mental performance, yeah, including memory.
Yeah, and I guess that's the difference that I come in. I'm not just like a sports psych or anything like that.
Yeah.
I actually have exercises that people can do, and because they're exercises, you can measure exercises, so you can actually see growth or see how badly someone's actually going. And that's a good thing, because now you can work on certain areas of improvement and things like that. So I deal in that training side. Yeah.
So have you written any books on this sort of stuff? Because you do have a couple of books out there, yeah?
Yeah, I've written a few books. Of the first one I wrote that's been published called The Yellow Elephant.
Yeah.
And that was, all on the memory techniques and speed reading, things like that. Then the other book after that was How to Learn Almost Anything in 48 Hours, which is how to use the memory techniques to learn something really quickly. So things like languages or playing guitar or things like that.
Yeah.
They're probably the big things that I found from learning memory is once you know the skill, then you can apply it for so many areas. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I got that Yellow Elephant book, so I'm going to have to bring that to you one day and get you to sign that for me. But, yeah, the other aspect that you're talking about, mental performance, I think that'd be really awesome for a lot of people in different areas, especially now that, the world is becoming more intense, to perform basically, whether it's to make money or whatever it may be. There's all different aspects of pressure required, whether it's, pressure from, family and friends and stuff like that to perform in different scenarios. I reckon it would be a lot of benefit to a lot of people out there. And I'd be really interested in seeing a book. So have you ever thought about writing a book on that?
On what exactly, sorry?
The mental performance side, like what you do with the athletes and stuff like that.
Oh, look, there's always, I've got like 10 book ideas. So, I'm not short on book ideas and stuff like that. I've just been enjoying, I guess, working with people and, time flies when you're doing that sort of stuff. But if I do get some time off or have a bit of, a period where I'm not working as much, then, I'll probably write something, I guess, and see how we go. But for now, I guess I'm happy bringing these skills and, working on myself at the same time as well, because you can't stay static. You have to keep learning. And so I'm always enjoying the process of learning myself and, trying to get myself better at the same time as well.
Yeah, so you're like always endeavoring to educate or improve upon yourself as well at the same time. You haven't actually said, all right, I know everything, don't need to learn anymore, I'm just going to start teaching. You're actually still continually every day or every week, I guess, trying to improve yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're in the business of helping others, there's always new things coming and, what you've learned 20 years ago, it's not going to work, possibly today. So I'm always on, the lookout for new things and new strategies and new research or, people out there that are doing amazing things. I mean, I try and learn from everyone. And the more open your mind is, the more you can take in and learn as well. Whereas if you're closed off, it's very, very, very difficult. So that's one thing that I've had to learn. When I was a lot younger, I wasn't that open-minded, I guess. I thought I was. But as I started realizing that, once you take that information on board and, you can critique or you can learn from it, it's very, very powerful. So I'm always, trying to learn and improve myself as well.
So do you work with any senior citizens or anything like that? Do you go into nursing homes and give, like lectures or seminars to help them? Because as it's becoming more and more common, because we're living longer, a lot of people are struggling with memory as they get into the older years because the brain, everything in the body deteriorates over time unless you exercise, which you're doing. So I'd expect you to be still switched on when you're older. But for a lot of other people out there, as they get into their older years, if they don't exercise their brain, they sort of tend to go backwards. Like I've seen with my family having a history of Alzheimer's in there. So do you go out to the nursing homes and stuff like that, or do you work with many senior citizens?
Not really, no. I have in the past, and techniques work as advertised. I guess it just works.
Yeah.
And people are able to use the techniques and, things like that. But, you could easily take the techniques, the training mechanisms and, share them around these places and get people to do them instead of them playing chess. You show memory techniques and that could be, memorizing cards or numbers or whatever it is and training their brain at the same time. So, there's many ways to sort of go about and, hopefully you can get adopted by, the elderly as well. Because, I do get a lot of people coming to me personally because they're afraid that they might lose their memory or they've got Alzheimer's in the family and so on. So, there's many ways to train the brain, just like physical training.
Yeah.
You can train the brain as well, and make it in a way a lot stronger than ever before.
So what's the oldest person you've actually worked with?
Sorry, I missed that.
What's the oldest person you've actually worked with?
Oh, look, I remember doing a workshop for the University of Third Age once, and they were in their high 90s,
Oh, wow. So, yeah, there
and
you go.
did a little memory test at the start of the day, and they all got zeros.
Yeah.
And then after learning the memory techniques, everyone remembered everything.
Wow.
So, and that was quite cool. I'm thinking, yay, go Ethel, go John, go. So yeah, it was quite good.
Yeah, because that just shows, like you said at the start, they all got zeros, but by the end of it, was it a big list of things they had to remember, or was it just a nice, reasonable 5 or 10?
It was just I think it was about 20 to 40 things, but
Wow.
it's still it's more about the usage of the techniques, and yeah, like some people just love learning, and if you always enjoy learning, your brain's always going to be moving.
Yeah.
If your brain's always moving, you're constantly moving, and your life's moving, I guess. So, whereas if you just stop, then you really have nothing left. So, yeah, I think that's why it sort of worked for these guys as well, because they're really interested in it.
Mm. Well, yeah, I saw that. I've heard that somewhere or read that somewhere where if you don't stop learning, you lose the mental or elasticity of the brain, and that's what helps keep your brain, I guess, working. I guess So the minute you don't start, that's why they call the TV the idiot box, because it stops you from, like, you can learn from the TV, but I don't know if that impacts at all. But the whole thing is when you're learning, you're having mental elasticity, so you can take in more information. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what memory training does. You're you're rewiring the brain.
Okay, so you were talking about so you've written some books. What was that like? Writing books. Was it a really intense process? Like, is it something that obviously it's something you always wanted to do? Yeah.
Write books.
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, I've never it was never on my mind to write books. I mean, I read books about memory, and that was the only time I read books, but never really had it in me to write a book. And then I just thought, you know what, I'll just try a publisher, see if they're interested in having me as an author. And they were. I thought, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And then I just wrote a book, essentially. So that was it. It happened all too quickly. And then suddenly you become an author and you go, how the hell did that happen? But yeah, it was quite a fun process. I mean, writing is a challenge, but I worked out my own system, and I actually wrote both my books in 10 days.
Wow.
As well. So it's like
Amazing.
50,000 words in each of them. And now I actually show other people how to write books as well. So it's fascinating how it all comes together.
You are. You're like multi-talented now, yeah? No, because that was my next question I wanted to ask you. Like, was it easy getting a book published? But you sort of already got the license to write by having a publisher basically go, yeah, we would like a book from you, because I don't know for whatever reason, but obviously being a memory champion, they were keen to add you to their catalogue, yeah? Yeah,
I mean, look, they're after, storytellers, people that have achieved something. It's like, people doing a TED talk. I was an organizer for TED conferences here in Melbourne. And, the people that I would look for is people that actually had a story to tell, one that would, possibly inspire, educate, get people thinking. So, and that's what publishers look at as well. So if people wanting to get their book published, you got to look at it from the publisher's perspective of, who is this person, what story do they have, and can they literally help thousands of people out there as well. So I sort of went in with that mindset of this is who I am, here's what I've achieved, and this is what I can share with people. And they got on board with that, and they were quite good in helping me out to get a book. So, yeah.
Have you ever done a TED Talk yourself?
Yeah, I've done a couple of TED Talks and organized TED Talks myself. So, it's, again, same sort of thing of, how you're best going to share, your knowledge.
Because, I've always wanted to go to one of them, actually, to be honest, but I never know where they are. But I used to watch them on YouTube from time to time, and so I bet you've got an awesome. Well, you told us a lot of your story today, but you got to, you would have a really good story to tell, because most people once they get past 25, they think they don't really think about memory, Like for myself, it's a cool party trick, yeah. Like, do you get people asking you to do memory tricks or memory things at parties and stuff like that? Do you get a lot of people asking you about it?
I haven't been to a party in ages, mate, so I wouldn't know.
It'd be funny. I would think that, you'd have a few people who would like trying to test you, yeah? Like, do people try to test you all the time?
Oh, look, people can try, they can try and test me, and, people come up to me and say, oh, do you remember me? And I'm like, no, you're important. And I go, what?
You're supposed to have the best memory, yeah?
Yeah, I just pretend I don't know or I don't remember, and they freak out.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. So, so basically, what sort of you're doing classes and you run? Do you run Zoom sessions, or you were saying before you do Zoom sessions? Are you running classes? What are you doing now with people to help them with their memory?
Yeah, I just coach individuals at the moment, so people that not just want to improve their memory, but they want to achieve certain goals, like learn certain things, or they want to, train their memory for, remembering speeches, or they want to be able to read books, or they just want focus in their life. They're really busy, but they want to, they want to have some time to themselves. They want to relax. They want to reduce stress and anxiety. So you can do all this stuff with memory techniques. So that's what I do with people. I help them to get their mindset right, get into, improve their careers or get some learning goals in check. And once they're able to do that, then they can, move to that next stage in life.
All right. So what are most of the challenges that these people have when they come to you?
Yeah, the general challenge is, life's pretty full on. They're really busy. They want to be able to do A, B, C, and D, but they can't because such and such is in the way. So there's a lot of stuff going on in people's lives, and it's just me trying to understand what's going on in that person's life, coming in with, certain strategies and things that will work for me, and then giving them the tools they need to move forward. And that's pretty much it. It's nothing to, it's not a rocket science. It's me just sort of problem solving and giving them the ability to, empowered with the memory techniques.
So for people that want to get into the memory games arena, what tips would you have for them?
Yeah, look, I'd say go and research memory techniques. There's YouTube now. There wasn't even YouTube when I first started. So get on there, learn some of the techniques, read some books. Honestly, you can learn so much already in a very short period of time. And then get onto a website like memoryleague.com, where all the memory athletes in the world actually come together. Excuse me.
No, that's all right.
People come together, the athletes, and you can actually attempt some of the events as well, like memorizing playing cards or words or numbers, and just have a go at the events and see how you go.
Just one more question I got for you. I remember last time we spoke, you told me about you memorized the yellow pages, yeah? How did you do that?
Yeah, look, that was a challenge set out by a PR company. They said, look, I want you to memorize the phone book, and you've got 30 days to do it. And I'm like, oh man, So I almost said no, but I thought, you know what, I did calculations in my head, so you know what, it's possible.
Yeah.
So I had to memorize over 20,000 digits of numbers, and that was like over close to 2,500 ads. So I divided that by 30, and then I realized, I have to memorize X amount every single day.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I just sort of memorized every single day. Some days I would memorize for an hour. Some days, if I missed a day of memorizing, then I'd have to do like 8 hours in a day or 10 hours.
Damn.
Which was quite ridiculous. But yeah, that's what I did. And after 24 days, I'd memorized the phone book, or 2 yellow pages phone books it was back then.
Oh, so could you go back, like if I said to you now, if I had the book in front of me, would you still remember that stuff? Or is that like sort of now gone and past and sort of the glass has been emptied, so to say, and now you've got more challenges, so you couldn't do it. Like, could you still recite it?
It was basically, again, it's about understanding what they wanted me to do for that challenge. And that challenge was basically to memorize a phone book for that weekend. Right, that was it. And that weekend, I went. They flew me to Sydney. I had to sort of recite at this, massive home convention and blah 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 blah. So that's what it was for. So that's what I did. So if they said we want you to memorize it for 12 years straight, then I would have done a different strategy. So it was only for that weekend. After that weekend, that was pretty much gone from my head.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. So it's just about more strategy and intention behind it.
Is that like what those magicians do, like Dynamo? Dynamo tells people to go work out a word, and he goes and actually, no, that's a bit different. Yeah, he finds the word for him. I was going to say, like, because magicians would use these memory techniques as well to wow their audience, yeah?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. But, I mean, I do know that, yeah, you can do some pretty cool stuff once you memorize stuff. But it does take time to memorize. So we're not memorizing in seconds like that. Yeah. We got to think first, and we got to attach items. We got to visualize. And to memorize maybe 10, 20, 30 things, it might take us over a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So, whereas magicians, they're entertainers. So you can't have any dead air. To be honest. So they're probably doing some other thing that's, half memory related, but other things might be, sleight of hand, So, yeah, just really their job is completely different, entertainment, whereas we have to memorize,
Yeah. Oh, look, I really want to thank you very much for coming on to today's show, right? We're just up on the 45-minute mark. But if people want to reach out to you in the future, how can they go about it? Do you have a website? You're on Facebook, social media? Everyone's on social media these days. But yeah, how can people get in touch with you and basically maybe become your clients and learn?
Yeah, look, I do have a website. It's just my name, tanselali.com. So they can go there, read more about me, watch my videos, all that sort of stuff. I've also got a YouTube channel as well. So I've got over 150 videos. So, people can learn about speed reading. They can learn about memory. There's a ton of videos on there as well, and I'm always sort of updating that, as well as LinkedIn. I'm on quite a bit on LinkedIn as well, so I do a lot of, a lot of my coaching clients are on there and professionals and so on. I'm also on Instagram as well, so I do a lot of videos there. As you know, like social media, you can't really get away from it these days. So I try and put as much as I can out there. I'm really bad at social media, so I try and I'm not that consistent, but when I do put stuff on there, hopefully it does help people out. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Any questions, I'm more than happy to help people.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is I'll get you to give me your social media links later. And what I'll do is I'll attach it to the video. So basically, if anyone's interested out there, reaching out to Tansel or just, checking out your content, basically, they can do that. But yeah, so other than that, that's pretty much about it for today. I just wanted to thank you very much for coming on to my show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. It's been great chatting to you.
Yeah, same. And look, for everyone out there, be sure to smash the subscribe button and also hit the like button so YouTube lets everyone know about this interview. But with that, in saying that, thank you very much for tuning in to today's show. And yeah, thank you very much, Tansel, for coming on.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
You're welcome. And yeah, thank you very much and have a good day, everyone.
Oh